Morning, we'll call the meeting to order for the day. First item is approval of today's agenda.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve today's agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Any citizens that would like to be heard on any item that is not on today's agenda? Seeing none, approval of the minutes from the September 3rd, 2019 meeting.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the September 3rd minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second to pay the bills. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. And first item is readdress request for approval of Housing and Redevelopment Authority, tax levy.
Mr. Chair, I do believe this item was tabled at our last meeting, so I would move that we take it off the table.
Motion and second to remove the tabling of this item from the prior meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Come on up, Tara. You got some,
Nice to see you. Good to see you.
you got some backup today, so.
That's all we could find.
We got
Got the muscle.
a couple of tough-looking guys with her today, so.
Good morning. Yes, with us are Dale Raleigh and Les Bakke, who are two members of the HRA Board of Commissioners. I brought this seat for me because typically when staff is sitting with commissioners, we take the short chair, but Dale's too much of a gentleman to allow that. Thank you for letting us come back and talk to you again. We were all present in August when we came to you with the original levy consent request. After that meeting, the Clay County Board of Commissioners met immediately thereafter and really listened to what your concerns were and the things that you're facing as a whole within the county. That's one of the reasons the commissioners are with me. I think that they have always been sensitive to the big picture, what's going on across the entire in Clay County. So what we did is examine how could we maintain core services even at a reduced level, but be able to maintain those services. And they looked to me for recommendations, and I said the two areas that we would have to make significant cuts and or may not be able to carry out the programs are in the owner-occupied rehabilitation program and the Homework Starts with Home. I actually went out to, after the fact, to other housing authorities that do rehabilitation programs, and I said, okay guys, am I missing something? How is it that you can do the rehab programs? You know, is there a way of doing it? Every single one of the entities that I spoke to, the only way they're able to do it is with a levy. Entities that don't levy don't have rehab programs. I was unable to find any place within the state that they do. And so the next question is probably, well, why is it that you haven't needed to some years? We have developed properties, both Gateway Gardens on First Avenue North and Prairie Horizons Townhomes in South Moorhead, and we've used developer fees to help support those other programs. We received, I think, a relatively clear indication within the last few years that you're not interested in pursuing a lot more development activities right now, and so we've tried to focus on other areas. But the reality is that we have been unable to identify other funding in order to maintain that owner-occupied rehab program without making this request. So we reduced the request in half. The other area was Homework Starts with Home. There's a position funded through the Community Action Program to provide support services to the 30 households we have housed with that program. We would have to, I believe, and Emma is here from the CAP LP, but to eliminate a position there in order, if we're not able to receive levy funds in 2020.
Questions?
Well, I'll say from one person that really encouraged looking critically on what the request was and to see in a time where we're trying to make all ends work. I appreciate that you went back to kind of figure out a reduced amount, but still providing some level of service. And so I appreciate that. And from some person that, I serve on the Community Action Board and have been able to see those testimonials and see that those dollars are going to work and very well spent, I would say. I think that piece makes sense. The homework starts at home piece. And I think, you talked about this grant funding from the state. It's important, from what I think I heard you say, that there's some sort of dollar allocation from this board to give you a better chance to make the case for your grant funding.
That is correct.
Okay.
And that's what the $25,000 was left in for.
Okay.
We tried to keep it at a minimal amount that was still impactful. And we tried to look at how much could we reduce that. And then on the rehab side, we also looked at who we're doing rehab for and what are the overall costs to the county and taxpayers. 1 month in a nursing home costs approximately $8,000. Our typical investment out of levy funds is about $8,000 to $10,000. So if we can keep somebody out of a nursing home, it pays for itself in 1 month. If we can keep them out of assisted living, it's paid for within 2 to 3 months. We're typically rehabbing 3 or 4 senior homes and increasing accessibility and their ability to live independently in those homes. We do things like put bathrooms on the first floor, and do ramps, and put in accessibility bars. And so that's what I mentioned before, that we don't try to ask taxpayers for money unless we think we can save money in the long run overall. And that's why we think this program is really important.
What were the difference then in the levy request? Like, what was it, a $200,000 home
Right.
was how much?
Because we would have been able to do more with that.
Right.
Now we're gonna still do less, but we can at least maintain those services. And so we will continue to search for other funds.
Yeah, what was the impact?
It's exactly half the request. It was $450,000, we reduced it to $225,000. Last year it was $380,000. So from 2019 to 2020, there is a reduction on the HRA portion of the levy. Yes, I know it's better, it's more than zero though. I recognize that, but we are doing a reduction from 2019.
So I think what he's asking is a $250,000 home, the levied amount, then.
The levy amount on a $250,000 home is $8.75 per year,
Okay.
so less than a dollar a month. Even on $1 million home, it's $35, so less than $3 a month. $200,000 home, $7. So we're asking 50-60 cents a month for most.
And it's a 1-year request?
This is a 1-year request.
Goes on the levy for 1 year.
1 year, we have to come back and have this conversation again if we were to request again. I'm not promising it won't be next year. I'm not planning on it at this point, but I'm not going to, I'll make clear, I'm not promising it won't be. And then a significant portion of the levy is within the city of Moorhead, and the Moorhead City Council has not considered this yet. They wanted Clay County Commission to act first and get the guidance from you. And so if they don't approve it, that portion of the levy does not go into effect. And then it is reduced to a $125,000 levy.
Dale, you had something you wanted?
Yes, I've been retired now for about 15 months, just so you know. Just kidding. And I guess
That's why you have that big smile on your face.
Yes,
so,
exactly. And I guess really the only commissioner I don't know really well is Commissioner Haney, but nice to meet you. I was the Clay County Senior Coordinator for Lakes and Prairies for many years. And I think it's very important here right now that I express my gratitude on behalf of myself, and I think I speak for the HRA commissioners. I also speak as the former Senior Coordinator for Lakes and Prairies. The commitment that you have had currently, that you have always had from my time with Lakes and Prairies, and I know the commitment as you see the things that are coming up in the future. It's very important, and it's been a goal of ours at the HRA as well as it continues with Lakes and Prairies, that we try to keep our seniors in our homes as much as possible. Because again, we don't need to recite for you the statistics of what nursing homes and assisted living costs, all that, you know that. But again, this program has really had some impactful things happen because the program exists. And we can give you names and places and all those types of things too. And again, you know, we really appreciate the fact that you've stood behind this before, and we ask that you do it again. And again, that everyone knows that the HRA, we work for you, and whatever your decision is, you know, we're gonna live with that. And the bottom line is that our commissioners are a very diverse group and a very fine group. I'll throw that in, but I mean, we come from all over the county, and I think we have a pretty good handle on what the needs are in each of the communities and stuff. So again, I think for me, I just want to express my gratitude and say thanks.
Les?
Thanks. I'd like to go to the other side. You know, we're talking about the seniors and rehabilitation for homes so that they stay in their homes, and it's really great. My career was education, as all of you probably know. I was at MSUM, and I've been retired from there since '08. But anyhow, we do have another program for the young people in our community. Homework Starts at Home. It used to be called something else, but that's the program now. And it is a program that we can use these funds for, that will make sure that our young people, the ones in pre-K, kindergarten, elementary school, have a home to go to, have a livable home to go to while they're going to school. Because study after study said if we get to our youth early enough with a safe home environment, they do far better in school. It's that simple. And people who do far better in school tend to continue into school, tend to get education after high school, pay more taxes, more contributions to our community, and so forth. And part of the funding that we're asking for today would go toward maintaining and improving that program.
Thank you. Jim?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to oppose this request because a year ago you came and asked us for a very significant request, $380,000. And at that time it was sold to us on the idea that it was going to be once every 4 years. That would work out to $95,000 a year. Now we're coming back with initially a $450,000 request 1 year later. Now we cut that in half to $225,000, but I'm still going to oppose that. I think in this situation, this is the year that we are investing in our people with our class comp study in Clay County. And we have some significant funds that we have to look at there, and we've asked all of our department heads to trim their request for the levy this year. And I think we're going to do, I'm requesting that we do that in this case as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? For the board's wishes?
Well, I do agree with Jim in terms of how it was communicated. But I will also say that I think on all the different boards and commissions that we have in the county, we frequently get updates to this board about what may be coming down the pipe. And I think part of what was hardest for me to digest about this was that it came at, the timing was off. And so, you know, if we could get reports or communicated to Steve about what's coming on, then we can plan better. But because I've seen the vital importance that this program can offer in the county, and I think it definitely pays for itself, I will make a motion today to accept the resolution of $225,000.
We have a motion. Travis, you second it, Frank?
Yeah.
And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm gonna go back to my comments from your last visit here, and this is a year of real struggle for our board, and every department head who brings their budget before us, every entity, whether it's the library, every entity has the same concerns that your entity has in terms of funding. And, you know, when we start getting calls, Commissioner Moser just mentioned she just got one this morning from somebody really concerned about, property taxes rising 104%, and in some areas, that's what's happened, and some of it has to do with revaluations, or part of that cause, but it still is 104% that they didn't have before. I'm not in a position where I'm going to oppose a levy at all for your group this year. But as Commissioner Haney did say that, we have a significant comp study for our own employees this year, and it's big. It's a big burden on our taxpayers, not on our, I don't want to say the wrong thing for our employees, but we also need to take care of our employees, and each and every year, there's different things that come up. We asked everybody to hold back when we were going through the jail phase and the new law enforcement center. If we would have just allowed everybody to have their requested increases on all those things, we would have really been in a hurt bag, so to speak. Even though our citizens did, and I think partly for that reason, the citizens supported the sales tax for those projects. But we're far from out of the woods in a lot of areas in terms of demands on our social service demands are incredible. And I understand that what you're saying here is probably this is a better alternative than that.
Cheaper.
Yeah, right, yeah, well, staying in your home is better. Not only is it cheaper, but it's better, so I get that. I guess, today or next week, we're gonna be passing our preliminary levy by law, which we have to do. And I'm gonna support a number that's proposed in our preliminary levy, but I'm gonna support it as a preliminary levy. And until we can see everything that shakes out through the end of the year, I might not support that same number in December. But I need more evidence of where we're at. So under your process and your timeline, so we can't wait till December.
This would be a preliminary consent as well. It can be reexamined up till the end of the year. It's the same timeline as the general county levy, but it would need consent at this point in order to stay in consideration. But it can always be reduced but not increased after September.
Yeah, but
30th.
but
Once you've given consent, you can still withdraw that consent through the time that you finalize the overall levy. That's my understanding, at least from the auditor's office. And I'm just very sensitive to the issues that you raised, in that the HRA, as an entity created by the Clay County Commission, follows the Clay County compensation studies and pay scales. We made the conversion on our health insurance 2 years because we saw it coming down the pike. And we've had 49% increases one year, 20+% increases, and this year we're at a 15% increase. So I'm very sensitive to those issues, that if you want, but it's also one of the reasons that we're unable probably to maintain these services, because we have expended our reserves at this point and don't have alternate funding resources.
Well, I guess, I'm gonna have to take your word for, a preliminary levy versus a final levy.
That is, from the auditor's office, that is my understanding.
If that's the case, I can support Commissioner Mojo's resolution today, but until I see the entire picture, and I think that goes to part of Commissioner Haney's concerns as well, is what is the total picture here, and until we know what that is, I don't see how we can guarantee you something we can't even guarantee our own department heads right now. You understand where I'm coming from there? So, I'll support the motion. I'll support the motion with the idea in mind that, if things aren't coming out the way we like, we may have to adjust that. I'm not suggesting that it would go to zero. I'm not there on that, but, we- you know, in my mind, and that's going to take one of us to make a motion to do that. So that's my comments, I guess.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'll support the motion too today. You know, and I think Commissioner Haney's comments are well taken. You know, I would be careful about coming back every year for this because I think it'll become more difficult, but. So, any other comments or concerns or questions for these fine people? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And please, we'd be happy to come back and give updates at any point in time that you would like. And in fact, typically once every 3 years, we've attempted to have a joint meeting with the Clay County HRA Board of Commissioners and this board. So if you'd be open to that, I would love to try and schedule something with the administrator.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Darren, come on up. Next item is approval of insurance renewals for 2020 benefit plan year. Darren brought backup too today.
I brought
so.
my right-hand woman here today. Well, thanks for having us. This is kind of an annual thing, as you know, and since a lot of my time has been consumed by the market study and union negotiations in the past couple of weeks, Jennifer has kind of picked up the ball and run with it on all the renewal stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her and let her tell you everything you need to know about that.
Jennifer.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So this would be our time to approve renewals for 2020. As I usually do, I did include this in your packet, which is the benefit sheet for the renewals that gives the updates to the premiums. The only premium we'll see an increase to this year or next year will be the health insurance rates. They were increased by 5% through Blue Cross Blue Shield gave us a 6.8%, and then through Lakes Country we were brought down to a 5%. So we will see those increases next year. The dental insurance remains the same. We're on a rate guarantee for them, at least I believe through the end of 2020, as well as the same for life insurance and long-term disability. Those rates are guaranteed through 2020, and the vision plan rates are guaranteed actually through the end of 2021. So there will be no increases with any of those. There's been a lot of work at the insurance committee level to make some changes, not only to the cafeteria plan allocation, but also benefits within the cafeteria plan. So I'm going to start with the county contribution that's given every year. Currently we have one county contribution for everybody. That's currently the $12.94. Throughout discussion at the insurance committee level, it was discussed where the idea or recommendation to separate the county contribution between singles and families, and to, for next year, at least raise the family contribution not only by the 5% according to the insurance rates, but also an additional $200 for the family county contribution. That would also then be prorated based on the status of employees down to the 24 hours. So on this sheet that I handed out, there's the single contribution reflected there that will increase by the 5%, and then there was also the family county contribution that we are recommending, which includes not only the increase, but the extra $200. We also looked at changing the way we calculate the county contribution. Today we do take 50% of the increase to the Triple Gold family plan. However, there has not been anybody on the Triple Gold family plan for a couple of years. And another one of our recommendations is to remove the Triple Gold plan for 2020. And so with that, we did have to devise a new calculation method for the county contribution. And so what the insurance committee recommended was we would take the average of the increases to each status. So for example, for the new single county contribution, we will take half of the average of all of the single plans and how they increase and apply that. And then on the family side, we will take half of the average of those family plans and increase it that way. So that results in a little bit lower increase, especially on the single side. This year it's only a $16 increase for full-timers. In the past it's been higher than that in the
50 or 60
$50 or
bucks.
$60. So I'm not sure if I really made that clear on how we're doing that calculation. So we'll take the increase, the 5%, we applied that to all of the single health plans that we have, and then we averaged those increases and then divided that by 2. And then we took that same calculation on the family side. And so we'll take that and we'll move that forward as long as that recommendation is accepted. Another change that we talked about is implementing a new single county contribution for new employees. So starting 1/1 of 2020, anybody hired on or after that date would have the new single county contribution that's reflected on the bottom of the page, which is gonna be $892. That is calculated by using the new premium of the CMM single, which also includes the single dental and the basic life insurance. We combined all those 3 premiums to come up with a new amount of $892. Current employees are going to be grandfathered, so they will still receive the single contribution as reflected here of $1310 and prorated down. They will also receive the new family contribution, which is reflected as $1536 and prorated down, but only the new hires hired after 1/1 of 2020 will then see that new single contribution of $892. They will also receive the increase in the family contribution. So we're just trying to reallocate some of the ways we do the county contribution to help with our families. We struggle a little bit with getting families on our plans. Currently, we only have about 46 families on our insurance, and we'd like to see that about a 60-40 split, and so hopefully we can make strides starting with this one to see more families come onto our health plans. So also over the last year, we have worked on different ways to look at our insurance as well. Again, one of the things we have proposed to everybody is to remove the triple gold health plan. We understand that health plan is very costly both on the county side and then the employee side. So that has been recommended to remove that plan. Also, we're going to add a new feature called a hybrid feature. So with our VIBA 3375, currently it's a combo plan, meaning that you can have a VIBA and an HSA attached to that. We're also going to take that one step further and put a hybrid on that. That just means that the contributions going to the VIBA trust can now be given a choice to employees to whether they want to put it in the VIBA trust or whether they want to put it in an HSA or whether they want to have a 50-50 split. And sometimes when you're kind of requiring people to put money somewhere, it gives a little bit more decision-making to the employee to decide which tax account really benefits them the most at a particular time in their lives. And they can switch those decisions as they move forward in their careers. And so that will be added to that plan. And then, let's see, I hope I'm moving through this correctly here. So as we move forward, I just want to go back to the current employees being grandfathered. I just want to make that clear that the ability to use the county contribution dollars towards cafeteria plan election options and then receiving all that money back that they do not use as cash income is going to be grandfathered in. Those current employees will still do that. Of course, we will encourage them to use it all on the cafeteria plan elections or to be putting that money in pre-tax accounts. But if there is money left over, they will still be allowed to utilize that as taxable income. Employees hired after 1/1 of 2020 will no longer be receiving a county contribution dollars as a cash benefit if they are not used. So as we hire new employees starting after that date, we will be obviously encouraging them to use the money within the cafeteria plan. But there is money left over that will be required to be put into either a VIBA trust, an HSA, which is a health savings account, or a flexible spending account. We did discuss this with an attorney who's looking over all of our cafeteria plan documents. We had discussed whether if something was less than $20, we would allow them to keep that money in cash. But it has been told to us by the attorney that all the dollars would have to go into the accounts. We can't give employees a choice between the cash benefit and post-tax accounts, which would be supplemental life, things like that. And so all the remaining dollars would have to be required to be into one of those tax accounts. And so that's how we will proceed going forward with new hires and how our cafeteria plan will be written going forward. And so we do have an attorney reviewing that at this time to make sure that the legal requirements are there for that as well.
So this bullet point about the $20 goes away.
That will go away. That will be removed, yes.
And I do want to make the comment here. It says here that all the excess dollars, but they still have options to choose several different
Correct.
items under the cafeteria
Yep.
plan, whether it's long-term care.
Right.
So they can use that money towards buying any of those, what I consider to be health benefits.
Yep, ancillary benefits.
Yeah.
This would be the
Ancillary health
remainder.
benefits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything left over after all those elections have been chosen.
Okay.
Jennifer, would you please explain what the acronym VEBA means?
Yeah, so the VEBA is our Voluntary Employee Benefits Association, and that's actually the term for the health plan itself. But that also has a VEBA trust account attached to it. So currently, for example, for the 3375 plan, we are putting $140 in there a month out of our county contribution and $220 for families out of that. And so that's another pre-tax account that employees can use to help them because of the high deductible that's attached to that plan. So they can take that money and use it towards their out-of-pocket medical, dental, vision costs that they might accrue while they're trying to meet their deductible.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you.
And the next bullet point there for the VEBA, or for the CDHP 6750, which is our newest plan from last year, which has a 6750 single deductible and 13,500 family deductible. We brought that plan in last year as just a HSA compatible plan, meaning you could only have a health savings account with that plan. However, with the new requirement of new employees putting their money into pre-tax accounts, we wanted to also add a VEBA to that plan now going forward. Some people cannot have an HSA if they have, say, TRICARE, or maybe they're on another health plan that doesn't allow an HSA. They wouldn't have an account to put their money in.
You can only have one high deductible plan. Is that the reason for that?
Both of them have to be high deductible. So if you're double covered, they both have to be HSA compatible.
Okay.
Yep. So we're going to turn that plan into a combo plan with a VEBA and HSA attached to it, and also adding that hybrid option to that one as well. However, that combo plan will only be for the new hires. Current employees, again, will not have the requirement of putting their money away in those tax accounts, so that one will just remain HSA compatible for them. But for new employees, it'll have the new combo design with the hybrid feature. Does everybody follow where I'm going with all that information? Okay. I apologize, sometimes I talk quickly.
It's like drinking from a fire hose.
So the next item is, one of the other items that was brought to us by Blue Cross was that every couple of years, the HSA compatible plan, which is the VEBA 3375, is indexed due to IRS regulations to keep what we call the fourth quarter carryover. The fourth quarter carryover is a feature which is in all of our plans except for the 6750 that allows, if you've met your deductible in the fourth quarter, that amount also carries over to the new year and you've met your deductible for that amount for the next year as well. So in order to to keep that into the 3375 plan, IRS is indexing that deductible to be $3,500 single for next year and $7,000 deductible for family next year. Our recommendation from the insurance committee then also is to relook at the VEBA trust funding levels. Currently, it's $140 a month going in there for a single and $280 a month going in there for a family. And we've usually indexed that based on 50% of the deductibles. And so we're recommending that we increase that to $145 a month for a single and $290 a month for a family due to the increase in the deductibles to that health plan. And that will apply to everybody currently.
And those are required deductions.
Those are required deductions that are part of that health plan currently, and so that's why it'll apply to current and new employees. We also had an RFP this year, which is a request for bids on our health insurance. We did have 4 bids that came back to us. One of them, I think, was from Sourcewell, and they did say that one was a pretty competitive bid. We also had 2 self-insured bids, which we didn't put too much stock into this year. We did recommend to go and remain with Blue Cross Blue Shield for 2020, just due to the lateness of the game at this point. But we do, with all the changes that we're making, we are a very, I don't know how to say, attractive group to other carriers. And so we would also like to go out for bid for 2021, and we may take a closer look at maybe a self-insured model. We are told that we are at the size of the group we are, that self-insured, as we do with our dental now, could be another way to go. And so we will do that earlier next year so we can get those results back and have further discussion on that. But we will recommend to remain with Blue Cross for 2020. Another item to discuss is the grandfathered. Ever since the Affordable Care Act came down in 2014, we have grandfathered at least 3 of our health plans. Next year, we will recommend continuing the grandfathered status for 2 of them, which is the CMM 1000 and VIBA 2600, because we are recommending the triple gold to be removed. The CDHP 6750 and the VIBA 3500 are non-grandfathered because they were new plans coming in, and so we could not have grandfathered status on those. We also received word that there are some changes to some of our wellness benefits for next year. One of them is that they will be paying for insulin at 100%. Under Blue Cross had agreed to do that because of ACA, and then the Lakes Country had agreed to go forward with that as well. So the insulin will not be subject to deductible, co-insurance, or any co-pays. It does follow the formulary that we already have tied to our health plans today, and so that is a good news for people that may have strayed from the HSA high deductible health plans before. They may look more attractive to them going forward. So that was something that we had just learned recently. I just received the further renewal, which is in charge of our medical flex accounts, our dependent care flex accounts, and our VIBA trust and HSAs, and there will be no increase in the administrative fees for that going forward for next year either. And I just received that today or yesterday. So going forward, our recommendation to the board, there would be twofold. One would be a motion to adopt the new county contribution rates as presented, as well as to renew our contract with our current insurance providers with all the changes included that are outlined in this document as we discussed here today. That would be the first motion.
Ward? Yeah, if I can, Mr. Chairman, I think when we take a look at these 2 boxes, actually the 3 boxes where the increases are for the single and for the family, and we show that $200 increase in the family for starting in 2020, that's, in itself, it might look like it's costly, but in the end, what we have found is the more families that we can have on and be covered, the overall less likelihood we are of having large increases. So on the front end, it might appear that we're paying more, but in the long term, I think we're probably going to see some benefits to have. The more people you can have, Jennifer just said that we're attractive to other places because, and I think it's because of our size and the number of people we insure. And, and the smaller that group gets, the more costly it is. And so the more people we get insured, the better. So that's why the family makes sense. I do want to say that going down to that bottom bullet about the new cafeteria plan for singles effective in 2020, we have to have this, to help offset, the wage side of things on that wage study. And we've talked about that before. And I don't know, I know your open enrollment is when?
We would like to start open enrollment on October 17th, and it would run through November 8th.
Yeah, and I guess my only concern is what assurances do we have, and what are we going to do as a board, in terms of the wage study deal. And so doing this has to be contingent on, we've talked about that before, and how do we do that?
Yep, since August 27th, you gave me the permission to go out to the unions and negotiate that package. As of yesterday, I've met with all 9 unions for the first time. We're meeting with the lieutenants again this afternoon for the second time. We already have 4 unions that have signed off on it. The social workers, case aides, detox, and assistant county attorneys have all signed off on the plan, the MOU, to implement what we discussed. Deputies are going to vote it next Monday. I think that's going to be a positive vote. And then that just leaves the 4 unions that we're in contract negotiations with, new contract negotiations with for 2020. And we've outlined our proposals and our MOUs for that as well. And I think all of them are acceptable to that plan. We haven't had the votes or the signed copies yet, but I think in that respect, it's looking pretty good. We're going to try to get the MOUs before we actually have to finish the whole contract negotiations with the 4 that we have open contracts with. But hopefully, we're meeting with the lieutenants today. Hopefully, we can get them on board pretty quickly.
You know, in fairness to the board, you know, going back to the, you know, a lot of this discussion happened through the insurance committee, and we've tried to separate benefits from income and make them 2 separate things. And this has been our opportunity to do that for the long term. And you know, but that group was, you know, they basically, and they're represented by, you know, bargaining units. And what their message was, well, you know, we can go along with this provided that the work study thing is done. So
we're kind of in an unusual and good circumstance, because a lot of counties that they do a wage study and they get the cost and then they pay that cost. And others at another time do and adjust their benefits and stuff. Well, we're having the opportunity to do them both at the same time on the same year, where we're offsetting some of those market study costs with our healthcare costs as well. And we have 90% of our employees are on single coverage and 10% are on family coverage. And so that's one of the issues with our health insurance, is we're trying to get a 70-30 or 60-40 split, like Commissioner Campbell said, to, you know, lower our renewals at that point, so, for the future.
Well, you know, I think there's still a little bit of work to do in terms of, we haven't seen the language on the cafeteria, because the cafeteria plan itself is going to have language modifications to it, right?
We sent that, Jennifer sent that in on Friday or Monday?
I sent that to the attorney yesterday. Well, actually, I sent it on Friday, and he was going to review it over the weekend. The cafeteria plan itself is more of a shell document. And so what we had done is the fringe benefit guide that I created a few years back, that is what we use currently, and has the VIVA language in there. And so that's actually what he is looking at. I sent that to him yesterday, and that is going to be what we will put the new language in, and he will send that back with the language that is required.
We had a conversation with him yesterday, too.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think right now, you know, Jennifer and Darren, and I think through their department, they should continue to plan for open enrollment with these numbers. However, in terms of voting it today, I think we should wait till we have concurrence from all our members, union members, on this. I don't want to say that this is going to be final, and then we find out that we still might have a bargaining unit who doesn't agree with this. I guess, so what's it going to hurt for us to wait a little bit if open enrollment isn't until the middle of October?
Well, the one thing that is getting ready for open enrollment, updating the websites, getting all the changes in getting the information out to the employees, you know, all of that takes time. And when you're dealing with 550 some employees, well, 400 and some that have benefits, health benefits, putting together packets with all the information on, that takes time. And we're already, you know, halfway through September. That would be the only thing that I would see could really hinder our open enrollment at this time. And I'll let Jennifer, she's the one that does most of the work anyway, so I'll let her comment on it as well.
I guess I completely agree with Commissioner Campbell in terms of this, in order for this, the other piece to happen, this has to happen, and we have to all be under the same understanding. I also understand that you're under a pinch in terms of timeline and prep, and so, you know, I'm not quite sure what the easiest way is, if it were for us to do preliminary approval now, pending the other sign-on, you know, if that helps.
Well, I think Commissioner Campbell said that we would proceed just like this has been approved. And then.
Yeah, well, I think that's my
Then do the
suggestion.
rest of.
Yeah,
You know,
And
that's my
then, and then
suggestion.
if we have an outlier somewhere, which I don't anticipate at this point, but I can't say for certain because, you know, they haven't voted on anything yet. But I think we proceed just like this is gonna happen. And then if we have an outlier union that just goes against the grain, we deal with that on an individual basis. And, I mean, that's the only way I can think of that we can still continue to move forward instead of putting this on hold, because we still have second negotiations with correctional sergeants, correctional officers, highway, and lieutenants. And our lieutenants ones, we're hoping to finish today. Highway is very simple. The other two will be probably the ones that we might have a little bit more.
Can we approve it with contingent on agreement by all the
Yeah, well,
bargaining units?
yeah, and again, I understand that there might be other issues that bargaining units might be trying to change in their contract outside of compensation and benefits, right? But what I want assurance of is what we've been talking about in terms of the compensation and benefits, that we get an MOU
Yep.
that says they're in agreement with that.
Yeah.
The other things that you might have to deal with, that deals with other issues with bargaining, is I'm not saying that those all have to be resolved.
Right.
Right now.
And that's what we've done, is we've given each bargaining unit the MOU that Mike came up with to say this plan
Okay.
of the benefits. And if we can get those MOUs signed, then the ongoing negotiations on, you know, uniform allowances and boot allowances can
That's different.
continue
That's-
on.
that-
Yeah.
Well, I guess, you know, I'm comfortable then, I would make a motion to approve all of these recommended actions, subject to all bargaining units agreeing to an MOU regarding the benefits portion of it, you know, and the compensation, we've talked about what that would be, so. That's my motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second. And does that mean that there's all three of these motions that are in our packet here?
Well, I think right now, my motion kind of covers this in compensation.
Which is the first one, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then I think the grandfather, I think, should be a separate motion anyway, so. that-
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
And then, Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the grandfather status of the CM 1000 and Viva 2600 health plans under the Affordable Care Act.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Now, do we also need the motion to adopt the new county contribution rates?
That would be included in the motion
Yeah,
that Kevin made.
that would have been
So
my
that's
first motion.
superfluous then,
Yeah.
we don't need to
Yeah.
make another one, okay?
And again, those new contribution rates in my motion was subject to MOUs from all
Yes.
bargaining units.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next item is a closed session, contract negotiations.
Motion to close the meeting?
Second. Motion and a second to close the meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. And only an hour behind, so we're moving right along. Request for approval of resolution 2019-31, Joint Powers Agreement with St. Paul Port Authority for Property Assessed Clean Energy PACE Program.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. You guys recall on September 3rd, Peter Lindstrom from the Clean Energy Resource Team and Michael Linder from the St. Paul Port Authority provided a presentation on the Property Assessed Clean Energy program. They had been here previously back in 2016. This program is a voluntary tax assessment opportunity for nonprofits, commercial office buildings, farms, churches to help pay for energy efficiencies, upgrades, and renewable energies such as solar panel, HVAC, and LED lighting. At the end of that presentation, the board asked Brian to take a look at, Mr. Melton, to take a look at the Joint Powers Agreement. He has taken a look at that and has provided feedback that it's appropriate for signature. And so with that, I would have turn to you for discussion or questions.
Any questions for Steve? I think, you know, I think everybody was pretty much in agreement that this was a good thing for us to be involved in, so, and everything's good with the county attorney's office, so, any other comments?
Yeah,
Kevin?
I do too. I think, you know, we refer to this as another tool in the toolbox for economic development. I think with that, I would move that we enter into the Joint Powers Agreement as proposed.
I'll second that, because I was talking to some people, they're using this program in other counties as working. So.
And I do believe that, you know, once this passed, I think, you know, our administrators should probably even go so far as to send this out to all of the people that we've worked together with in terms of economic development, that this is another tool, whether it's the
Right.
Greater Fargo Economic Development, all of our different development associations through our cities.
Yeah, we want to promote it so everybody's aware that it's available now in Clay County, so. Okay. You made a motion?
I did make a motion, and Frank seconded it.
Frank seconded. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Okay, request for approval of bonding refinancing for Prairie Lakes Municipal Solid Waste Authority.
Hello, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning,
Good to
sir.
see you all again. I didn't bring any backup today, so I'm all by myself. I come before you today to seek approval for the Prairie Lakes Municipal Solid Waste Authority Joint Powers Financing Agreement. That's a mouthful, basically what it means, and I think you guys got quite a bit of information in your packets as well. Hopefully it didn't put you to sleep. I'll boil it down to essentially what the amendment is for. Essentially, the Otter Tail County is issuing bonds on behalf of Prairie Lakes, and we have an opportunity to save a substantial amount of money by refinancing these bonds. So what I'm doing today is I'm coming before you to ask for that approval. The estimated savings is about $700,000, so as you can see, it's a fairly significant amount of money. So with that, Brian, you have anything to add at all?
No, I did review it on the JPA, piece looks good, no other issues.
Okay, any discussion, any questions for Kirk on this? I think it's, you know, it's definitely a good thing for Prairie
It's a really
Lakes
good
and for all of
opportunity,
us, and all of us that are involved in it, so it's a significant, like you mentioned, savings, so. For the board's wishes?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you much, appreciate it.
Steve, budget update.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair,
Keeps
Commissioners.
looking better.
But as you recall, your last update that we talked on our levy increase, we were at, I think, 2 weeks ago at 7.35. At that board meeting, you directed me to kind of go back and take another look. We've talked with our department heads. I've had a series of meetings with Lori and looking at different ways that we can identify other areas to look at. And before you, we have something for your consideration. which would take the levy increase from 7.35 to 5.85. And what that would be taking the windmill tax that currently we have allocated to the paying off the jail bonds. And also, you've been identifying building fund dollars and basically increasing those in increments of $50,000 to address the cost of the expansion of the law enforcement and corrections facility, with the exception of $50,000, which goes into Joe's budget, Joe Olson's budget. And so what we would be proposing today would be taking $350,000 of the building fund and reallocating $150,000 of the windmill tax, which would get us to this lower rate.
Okay, questions for Steve on that? Thanks, good work, Steve. I mean, it's, from where we started out, it's looking better all the time. So.
Thank you. And just for your information in your packets, I did include the bond schedule for the correction facility in the LEC. We're able to do this based on our sales tax projections, which we have also included that in your packet for the last 2 years. In 2020 is our peak year. We're looking at $2.2 million of principal and interest payment. And if you take a look at the documents, in our first 12 months of collecting sales tax, we collected over $2.4 million. Right now, with 2 months remaining, we've collected just under $2.3 million. And so we feel comfortable and confident that the sales tax would be able to cover the cost of that principal and interest payment.
Lori, good work too on this. I know you guys work together on this, and it's definitely improved since we first started. So
Well, I'll just say
comments?
that I appreciate looking in these different avenues, and especially the wind energy tax and the sales tax. And while I understand that this isn't something that we can continue to go back to every single time, it has to be a year-by-year basis, it's definitely helping out from where we started, so thank you.
And I know Commissioner Campbell is requested in the past the year-to-date, and so the information for 2019 year-to-date is page 3 and 4 of your packet. I also included the new request information. The board asked for that, so that's included in there. We did go back to our department heads as we talked on other issues this week, and we did make some additional cuts there that also impacted that levy percentage. So I would be looking at, we're at this point, we are anticipating bringing a resolution for you next week to set the preliminary levy for 2020, but would be opening up for any direction from us based on the information that we provided today.
So next week you'll bring it to us for approval.
Yes.
And then everybody knows it can't go up anymore, then it can go down. So
Correct.
which is the way we.
And I would note that, while we made some adjustments down, we've also had the conversation about the 5th courtroom downstairs, and the need from the state's perspective to have law enforcement or court security in there during their sessions. I've had a number of discussions with Sheriff Empting on the needs, and we don't have a clear picture of what that's going to look like. Sheriff Empting believed that rather than hiring a full-time employee, that if we added additional part-time hours into the budget for next year, that we would look at where we're at and then reevaluate for 2021. And that is included in this levy percentage.
Kevin?
This comes a long way from when it started. I think we were well into double digits on our net when we first started this, which was going nowhere fast in my mind. But and I'm going to support this as a preliminary levy. I have some interest to see what else is going to develop between now and the end of the year. I know we can't control what others do, but when you have potential bond referendums and all those other things that end up on a property tax statement, we sometimes have to take into consideration, what all of those things are going to do to to our taxpayers. HRA was here this morning talking about keeping people in their homes, and I have a strong interest in keeping people in their homes. And one of the ways to do that is keeping property taxes affordable. So, so I'm going to support this now. I appreciate the fact that, and Laura, you got that 500 in there, that was for the wind energy, and I think that's really good. That, we can't always do that, as Commissioner Mojo said. But, we need to take a look at an entirely big picture about what our cities are doing, what our school districts are doing, and what we're doing, and how we can work together to keep that in mind, so.
And I would note too, for just the commissioner's standpoint, if we are able to make the adjustments that we discussed with the insurance, that doesn't take any consideration of savings in this budget. And so our budget, our levy percentage right this year, leverage dollars is roughly right around $330,000. And so I think we could project easily a savings based on last year's numbers, if we had similar employee changes of about another percentage point in net to this.
Which would be good, yeah. It's a good.
Yeah, and that speaks to, the change to the cafeteria plan, for single people going forward. We haven't incorporated any potential savings there yet. We have the entire compensation piece worked in, but not that savings that would be there. And I don't know that in terms of what we incorporate into the, I don't know if we put in there the piece about, I think Darren and Jennifer showed us that by averaging the 4 policies going together, had we done that in the past, that would have been like another $70-some thousand savings. So I still think there might be a couple things, but I'm going to support this, and I would love for one time in my terms here that we actually change the preliminary levy.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done it yet.
That can be our goal. You can be the first one, Steve. Okay, any other discussion? All right, Steve. Thank you very much. Wait for it for next week then, so. Okay, request for approval of National Resources Block Grant. Kevin and Lynn. Good morning, gentlemen. Sorry for the wait.
Good morning. What we have is the Natural Resources Block Grant. This is a 2-year agreement between the county and the Board of Water and Soil Resources. I guess maybe one correction to that. It's a 2-year agreement for the local water management, the Wetland Conservation Act, and the shoreland. The septic has gone to an annual agreement. That number apparently can change from year to year, so that's an annual agreement that has been a change from the past. The numbers have all stayed the same for the last 2 agreements. The one change, and this is why we wanted to come up here, normally this is a consent agreement item. The Association of Minnesota Counties successfully lobbied the legislature this spring to remove the match requirement for the local water management. That was a levy that was on there the past 6 years, or the past 4 years. That dollar amount was $12,999. So that, just to make sure you guys are aware that you do not have to provide that match under that part of the program. And our request is to continue to have you provide that as that provides services to the county.
We've taken the program over in 1998, and ever since that time, that has been part of the agreement, is that part of the plan has always been the state dollars required, the levy portion from the state or from the county. Back in 1998, it was $37,500 that the state plus the county's levy portion. Since that time, I know we all went through unallotment years, and that amount was drastically reduced. Right now, we're at about, with the levy and the state match, state grant, we're at about $25,000. So we're still $12,000 down from what we were 20 years ago. But like I say, the $12,999 levy portion would be a huge blow to our local water management program for the county. And part of the things that we do with the local water management funds, those of us that are familiar with the One Watershed, One Plan programs that are going on in the Well Rice and the Buffalo River watershed districts, those help pay for part of our attendance at those meetings. And
So the 12,999 is still in the budget?
That's correct.
That's, I just
Just
And
a
that's-
continuation.
We're making an assumption that's what it, based on the 16-17 agreement, the 18-19 agreement,
Yep.
the numbers were the same, the levy was the same.
Yep.
That's something that Bowser sends to us, some formula that they have, we have no idea how they actually calculate that. But that's the number they give us, so. And that's normally why this is a consent agreement, because everything is pretty much set by Bowser's.
And I had called Steve earlier this week, just to find out, the awareness came to me quite late in the process, probably in August. And I wasn't sure just what the county board knew, or what Steve maybe knew, and I think there was some, something that we weren't aware of early in the program. So I know when I submitted my budget request for Clay SWCD, that was a portion that was included in that budget, so that's kind of where things are at.
Okay, what are the board's wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion?
I would just like to make one comment. I mean, I look at the presence for the soil and water. I've been going to the one watershed, one meetings, and they're always there working on it. I've been looking at the buffer program. They're involved in it, so they're really helping Clay County out. It's almost like they are part of Clay County, and I'm glad to see your presence there, because you guys are there helping out and doing a great job. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Committee reports. Frank, you gotta go, don't you? So,
Yeah, I'll be glad to go first, yes. Probably by the time I get done, I'll be too late anyway. Highway tracking last week, they talked about some new equipment there, or not new equipment, replacing some of the vehicles they got there. And they gave us an update on the Linden project. I was just out there looking at that again last night. That's moving along pretty good, but rain delays, we can't help out there, so. Also got some updates on the flood reduction in Moorhead. Wednesday morning, University of Minnesota, they introduced, not introduced, but told us there's going to be the new 4-H coordinator there. And she'll be starting September 27th, I think. The 4-H has really been a presence. I mean, if whoever attended the Clay County Fair knows how much they were a presence of the Clay County. In fact, they are a Clay County Fair, I think, so. Their presence is really noted out there. Randy Nelson not gave a report, but sent a report. I mean, he's on the radio quite a bit now. If you listen to some of the morning talk shows, he's present quite a bit, given quite a few interviews. That afternoon, I went to the emergency management program that was put on. They gave us a course book. They never really got to it. So I thought each week I would read one chapter to you, since
Yes, do that.
to keep everybody up to date on that. So I haven't got to review my book yet, so.
Put book on tape so we can listen to it every day.
Oh, okay, if you do want to borrow a book, I got a book on there they gave, they gave quite a few incidents, and I don't know, I had to leave about an hour early, and I don't know if they ever got to the book or not, but it was mostly incidents. What would you do in this situation? And they brought up, different instances, like if you got 12 inches of snow or 24 inches of snow, what would you do? Bring the dog in? I don't know. It's just, there wasn't much of the incidents that they brought up that we haven't gone through already. And it looked to me, we were very well prepared in Clay County. So it was good to have Gabe there and explaining our positions. Wednesday evening, then I went to the MRC program. They were mostly on the county board purchasing. I guess they're trying to get that straightened out in the state. Hopefully they will. I don't know, probably you got some more comments on it to do with Steve, but they were just looking at some things that we're going to cover on the Minnesota Rural, where our goals are going to be, and they haven't changed that much other than that purchasing thing. I think they got that settled, hopefully. And I thought this year the AMC was one of the better ones that I've attended. There's a lot of discussion on cannabis, growing cannabis, and the meetings I went to, you know, I mean, we don't have it, it's not, recreational marijuana is not authorized yet in Minnesota, but we gotta prepare for it. And that is, you know, getting your agriculture, they were talking about if you live within a couple of miles or half a mile of someone growing marijuana, it really stinks. So, I mean, they said it had some sort of a skunk smell to it or whatever, so you gotta be ready for it, so, and I think we gotta plan our agriculture, you know, our zoning, you know, get that ready for it, so. Another thing that I had on that thing was a timeline for property experiment Bill Stearns from Wadena County. Got a plan, new plan, and I brought you all a copy of that thing. He would like to do property tax like they do income tax. You know, everybody, you know, if you make so much money, you get, you're assessed so much in the state, you know, and he's got a plan where he would like to do the same thing with property tax, and,
Are you passing these out?
yes.
Okay.
You get your own,
I
get your own personal copies.
Thank you.
This is from Bill Stearns?
Yeah, Bill Stearns got a plan, he had the program. And it shows that Wadena County is the second highest taxed, the percentage of taxes. You know, they taxed at 87%, Clay County, I think it's right about the 40%. So, he was coming up with some sort of tax. I think it needs to be studied quite a bit before we can, you know, but just to give you some idea of it. Friday afternoon, I went to solar thing that we had here, that they're planning, not planning, but a guy gave a presentation on solar stuff, if we're gonna do more solar stuff in the county, and what you would do, even the land that's underneath the wind towers, you know, that's gotta be taxed differently than if it's in an agriculture zone, and you put a wind tower on top of it, now it's not an agriculture, I mean, you gotta tax it different because it's non-productive again, stuff like that. So they were talking quite a bit about these wind towers coming in, you know, who's against it, who's for it, you know, are the farmers against it? And he was saying they get more opposition from people who build a little farmstead or build a house out there and drive into town to work. The farmers are okay with it because they're leasing the land. And I mean, probably not all of them, but some of the farmers, they're okay with it, but the people who build a little farmsteads out there, they're not okay with it because they're not getting any money out of it other than it may affect them. So he brought a bunch of different situations up, but it does bring taxes to the county, and it's just another thing we got to get ready for. I think, yeah, I think, you know, in my meetings.
Thank you. On Wednesday, I attended the Northwest Regional Emergency Communications Board along with Commissioner Wayland, and we heard a grants update, and we had the third reading for the attendance policy, and we also approved adding the U.S. Postal Inspection Service to Northwestern Minnesota Armor System. And we discussed text the 9/11 issues, which is, they can text rated in 9/11 emergency dispatch. And then there was a recent issue of a woman that was being abducted and used for immoral purposes, and she texted from a truck on the interstate and was able to get saved and rescued because of text to 911. And it's quite costly, but there was an instance right there that it saved a life for potentially and horrible situation. We also had a discussion of, guess what, workforce problems and much needed dispatchers in the Northwest area. Multi-county training sessions are proposed to take place at Northland Tech in Thief River Falls with a 3 to 5 year plan to be able to standardize equipment and procedures, and thus would enable a dispatcher to be sent to different locales as needed, which I guess they're running into some real staffing issues with dispatch. Then on Thursday, we were at the fall conference in Alexandria at Arrowwood, and as
Commissioner Gross stated, we had some very interesting discussions. The first one was about workforce, of course, and that had to do with the presentation by someone associated with the state demographer. And then later on, then we had the two gentlemen, one from Washington and one from the state of Colorado, that told us what not to do if we make cannabis legal for recreational purposes in Minnesota, and to prepare for the potential conflict between hemp growing and recreational cannabis. I had no idea there was such a problem there, but there is apparently. And then I attended my policy meetings for Health and Human Services, and we established our priorities for legislation for this year. I think we talked about opioid, we talked about substance abuse disorder, and purchasing issues. And then the next day we had the presentation on the census, and to prepare us all for the census that's going to take place in April this next year. That's my report.
Thank you. Jen?
Thank you. Last week I attended a meeting, a PIC meeting that we discussed the legal issues in the closed session today. And that I didn't have any other meetings last week, as I was with our Clay County kids at the state horse show. Clay County is represented well with those young individuals, so that's exciting. And just an item of note, tonight the Moorhead School District is having a referendum informational session at 6:30 at Horizon West.
Thank you. Kevin?
All right, let's see, on September 10th, I attended the highway tracking meeting, and Commissioner Gross gave that update. I don't have anything to add to that. That same day in the afternoon, we did hold our insurance committee meeting, and we went through that quite a bit today on what that was about, so I won't go into more detail there. Then on Wednesday, let's see, Wednesday I left for our AMC Policy Committee meetings. Thursday morning, again, I found it very interesting, and the topic of discussion, the workforce thing, it's nothing new to us with the concerns there, and looking out over the next 40 years where we're probably going to have to go to see our workforce with the retiring people. And I think a goal that we need to be looking for too is how we can still incorporate those baby boomers who are retiring into some sort of keeping them in the workforce, even whether it's on a part-time basis, because they have an awful lot of experience and knowledge, to help resolve some of the workforce demands. In addition to, I think it can even go on to what the public school system is doing with the new academies and how they might really help out with demand in some areas. I found the conversation regarding the impacts of cannabis to be very interesting. Personally, I think it's a matter of when, not if, that this is going to be probably more prevalent in every state. And so I think it is good that that AMC is involved with that dialogue, and I think what they are really talking about, and it kind of goes to what was talked about this morning in terms of how we prepare for it and looking at our zoning issues as it relates to it and that type of thing. So there's more to come on that, but I found it very interesting. Then our Transportation Policy Committee met, and of course we came up with our 3 priorities, and of course the number one in transportation with road and bridge is always the funding. That there's all these demands and there's not enough money to fix all the roads and bridges that need to be fixed. And so then we did add, we had the local road improvement plan. And there, we do want to keep in there, of course, the broadband, which is of interest in some rural areas. You might not think that is transportation related, but it is. And so we certainly advocate for full broadband. I did have to take a break from the AMC conference and go back to Fergus Falls for the Lakes Country Service Cooperative Board of Directors meeting. And I guess in the sake of time, there was not an awful lot. I can tell you that the city of Detroit Lakes has joined on to the cities and counties insurance pool. So that's also good for us. You get another large community that gets involved with that, so that's also good. On Monday the 16th, I attended the Chair's Coordinating Meeting for the Diversion Authority. And again, it's kind of planning, and we talked about potential timelines for trips to Washington, D.C. A lot of discussion on the P3 conference that's going to be held there. And we had more information on a visit from our Major General Toy that's going to happen on the 16th of October. Then yesterday, we had both the construction meetings for our jail and law enforcement center. Everything is going good with the jail project and LEC. We're down to some, I think we're in the 11th month period for review of, our timeline for Phase 1 of the jail for warranty purposes. So we have our staff and Steve and Joe going through that, very significantly to make sure that all warranty items are noted and fixed. The West Central Regional Juvenile Center, it continues to be the headache of a remodel project. I say that just because of all the unknowns that have been there. There's a few more small change orders that come into place. A significant one that came up, and I think I talked about that before, was the what was it, the 30,000, what was that on, that was on the elevator,
Oh, the elevator, yes, the elevator shaft.
Down below the sump pump issues and everything, because it's apparently, they refer to it as like there's 4 hoses constantly running into that pit. And so we need to find a way to get that out. And so anyway, I'll leave it at that. We're running late.
Okay, I had jail and detention meetings yesterday also, and yeah, it's nice to see we're on the home stretch with the jail, so won't be too long, we'll be done with that project, so, which will be good. Detention won't be too far behind that, so, and that's actually seems to be going a little better than it has been for the last year or so. And Commissioner Mojo mentioned we had a PIC meeting last week. We discussed that in the closed session today, and Commissioner Haney mentioned the radio board and AMC. A lot of at the Public Safety Committee meetings that I think it's obvious there's a lot of support for recreational marijuana in Minnesota, but there was an agreement that if it's inevitable or it is going to happen, that counties need to be prepared for that, and so that was what a lot of this, rather than being a discussion about being for or against it, it was more about what do we do if it does happen in Minnesota, which is good. So that was it for me. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 11th, I met with Shelley Jeffers in regards to the referee update. They're in the process, the state's now in the process of putting together the job description. As of last week, the job had not been posted yet. We have a meeting tomorrow scheduled to meet with the state, our state and local IT to prepare this boardroom area for the different needs. I also participated at the AMC policy group. I won't go into a great amount of detail on each of those because you've all done a good job explaining. I did want to cover a couple different things. On Wednesday night, I did participate in the rural counties meeting where we did talk about, we heard from Steve Goldwait, the executive director from the Minnesota Association of County Health Plans. And if you recall back I think it was August 13th, Rhonda came before this board requesting permission to enter into mediation with DHS in regards to the county-based purchasing. The concern that we had was the changes that Clay County was looking at would had 10,000 of our citizens needing to change their program. This past, at the end of August, the South Country Health Alliance had brought suit against DHS that included Steele, Waseca, Todd, Wadena, Morrison, and Kanabec and Goodhue counties. As a result of the verdict, for 2020, all the RFPs were taken back, and so we will, in Clay County, will be allowed to continue on with our health plans that we had. So it was good news. The couple other different things as part of the discussion with the fifth courtroom. One of the areas that we're looking to take over for the judge and for the judge's court reporter was space that's utilized by the public defender's office, and so we've been working to try to find a space for them. We had a small conference room that we were hoping would be sufficient, and in talking with Mara Roche, the managing attorney, doesn't feel that is adequate space. Their main concern is they do have their main offices across the street, but they do have 4 attorneys who are part-time who don't have a home, and so they utilize that space. So we're working with Mara to try to find an adequate space for that piece. The sidewalk project, thank you for our citizens and our staff for their patience with the weather. It's taken a little bit longer. We're hoping to wrap that up in the northwest and south sides of the campus today. Our master planning, we were scheduled to meet yesterday, but due to some information that Klein McCarthy needed to evaluate a little bit longer, we moved that meeting until September 30th. Also had a conversation with Nancy Gunderson, and she just wanted me to update the board that over the last few years, the Minnesota Department of Revenue has been working with the state assessors in regards of how to best deal with residential properties that rent their homes, BBR or BRBOs, Airbnbs, Craigslist, Facebook, and basically what's been determined from the Department of Revenue and our state assessors is they're going to begin looking throughout the counties of people who are renting their properties for less than 30 days at a time, but in looking at whether or not they need to be graded as commercial. And so our assessors will be reaching out to our citizens who show up on these different sites and looking for clarifications. If those clarifications do in fact show that they are renting out their places, there'll be an assessment change for the 2020 tax assessment. I wanted to touch base, fill the board, and we have had some conversations in regards to Becker County's request to redistrict the managers in the Wild Rice watershed. We just received a response this past week from Bowser. That Bowser has a few different questions. Mostly what's changed and why does Becker County want to make that change when history has shown that Clay County has honored the agreement. There's also concern that based on the demographic changes that have taken place since 2006, there isn't a whole lot of changes, and it could actually have an impact on all of the counties as far as districting. And so what Bowser has requested is that we establish a meeting with all of the different counties from the watershed and see if we can come to some agreement, even if that would be the agreement between Clay County and Becker County. And so I'll keep you up to date on that. We are looking for a volunteer. Our state auditor exit interview is on the 23rd of this month at 9 a.m. And part of that exit interview requires to have one volunteer or one commissioner.
Is that Monday?
That is a Monday, yes.
Yeah, I'm in Detroit Lakes at meetings.
What was that for?
The exit interview for our state audit.
What's the date?
23rd.
You're looking at October.
Oh, this is November or what?
No,
September.
September 23rd.
Oh. At 9?
9 a.m., yep. In my office.
Yeah, I'm gone.
I don't see everybody jumping up and down.
You're the money guy, so.
I'll go.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Commissioner Campbell.
Call me at 8, remind me to get out of bed.
Okay, I'll send you a Outlook reminder. One of the things that Darren had planned to ask the board this morning as part of his discussion was permission. We've talked a little bit about this, but he's seeking permission to release the wage study summary. That's come up as a request by some of the bargaining units, and so we'd be looking for permission. He's looking for permission for that to be released.
God. Yeah, I think we already talked about that, you know, that's not a problem.
It doesn't wreck our poker game, does it?
No, I think it, like, we talked about it being a public document.
It's public
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
okay.
No, that's fine.
All right, and then just lastly, a reminder that we have a rural city and county meeting this Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. Our focus is going to be on economic development. We have Greg Wagner from the Director of the Business and Economic Development from West Central Initiative, Karen Lauer from Barnesville Economic Development, and Derek LaPointe are all going to be there to kind of talk a little bit about the programs that they offer and talk about kind of a synergy type thing and make that information available to everybody in the county.
Where's that meeting going to be held?
That will be here at the Law Enforcement Center.
Thank you. I want to get in there that I also attended the insurance meeting on the 10th. I forgot to give that in my report.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Steve. Colleen, anything else for us today?
Nope.
We're adjourned.